Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enuowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with the Daily Service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, SOUQ Enlightenment. We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job. In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight to drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. The National Theatre, Igomu. Built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, FESTAC, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged FESTAC 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Hello and welcome to Market Insight. I am Lavina Emma. Now on Monday, 25th March and Tuesday, 26th March, the Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Meeting had their 294th meeting to actually discuss the MPC rate. So this meeting took place at the CBN headquarters. Now, the results of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting was an increase in the CRR rate and also to combat inflation also. So the MPC meeting took place at CBN and the hiked benchmark interest rate was by 200 basis points, which was, so they've increased it from 22.75% to 24.75%. The new interest rate is a jump from the 22.75% as of February last month, and it was announced through a communique issued by the governor of CBN, Mr. Cardoso. So this second hike rate now, is it going to be able to combat inflation? And Mr. Cardoso announced this new hike rate during a press conference. So the cash reserve ratio was also increased. So for deposit banks, it was moved to 45%. However, the MPC adjusted the CRR rates for merchant banks to 10%, from 10% rather to 14%. The committee also retained the liquidity ratio rate at 30%. Now, all these new figures actually were asking questions. How does it affect people in the economy? How does it affect the current prices of food items in the economy right now? And are these new figures released by the Central Bank of Nigeria, will it be able to combat inflation right now? As we know, inflation is currently at 31%, which is quite high, actually. So these and so much more, what I'm going to be discussing with my guests this morning. So stay tuned.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
watching
SOUQ News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to SOUQ News. You don't touch that dial.
welcome back. So on today's show, we are discussing the Central Bank of Nigeria hikes the benchmark interest rate from by 200 basis points to 24.75%. As you know, it increased from last month, it was 22.75%, and this month it is 24.75%. So we're going to be discussing with my guest, Mr. Oladiton Oluwatosin Emmanuel. He's a business strategist and a financial analyst. So welcome to Market Insight this morning, Mr. Oladiton.
Good morning, Lovina.
Thank you, thank you. I hope you're doing fine.
Trying our best.
Okay, that's good to note. Okay, so yes, I mentioned earlier on that the Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Committee has increased the interest rates to 24.75%, and people are asking if these figures are really combating inflation. As we know, inflation is 31.70%, so it's increasing. That's the inflation. But why, as the Central Bank of Nigeria, why is the Monetary Policy Committee, why did they keep hiking up these interest rates?
Okay, so this is the second monetary policy committee meeting that is going to be held since the resumption of Olayemi Cardoso as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor. And one of the mandate of the CBN is for them to be able to combat inflation or to ensure price stability of prices of goods and services. Now, in doing that, if you compare, the interest rate currently is about 24.75, and the inflation rate is about 31.7. There's still this disparity. So what that implies is that if I have money today and I deposit, it's better for me to spend today than for me to go and invest. If you look at over the last 1 month, we had issues of treasury bills and we have issues of HOMO bills. Treasury bills are more or less debt by the government, and HOMO bills are debt by the CBN. Interest was around between 19% to about 21%. So if I'm going to keep my money for 1 year, I'm only able to earn 19%. But if I'm going to keep my money for 1 year, what I'm going to spend on has already increased by 31%. So the marginal propensity for me to save is not there. So the right incentive for me to save is not there. In fact, that is just the paper figures, because Nigerian inflation is majorly driven by the basis effect. We are not comparing with recent trends. So return on the average investor is going to reduce, but in Nigeria I can earn 31%, 23%. If the foreign exchange is stable, that simply means I can invest in Nigeria, earn a higher return, then convert my money back to US dollars. So one of the major things that the CBN has been doing over the last 6 to 8 weeks is to ensure that there's stability of the foreign exchange and to address the demand pull inflation by increasing the interest rate. We did not, people might ask that they've increased the interest rate before, but we've not seen the effect. They increased the interest rate sometime in March. March inflation figure is going to come out sometime in mid-April, so we'll be able to see that. But for now, they just have to increase it, because we still have a wide margin between the interest rate and the inflation rate. Interest rate means the saving interest I'll have earned on savings, and the amount prices of goods will have increased by. So that margin is there. We need to close that gap to a very reasonable level.
Okay, earlier on when I was speaking, I mentioned that the Central Bank of Nigeria, the cash reserve ratio for deposit banks was at 45%, but the one...
I will not be willing to spend that money, and also not to be able to create that right incentive for people to have a lot of money. When there's a lot of money in circulation, people really want to spend. If I have more money in my pocket, I'll remember that, oh, I've not settled this bill. But the moment I don't have enough money in my pocket, I'll still find a way to live or struggle to live within that same range. So, but for deposit money banks, banking occurs across different platforms. So we have the deposit money bank, which can take from a large pool of customers, and we have the merchant bank, which are majorly targeting the corporate and the commercial customers. Majorly, they just trade on corporate. They don't do retail banking like an average person can invest. So you also need to ensure that they also feel the pain. They also feel the pain, so as to not to release a lot of funds out, so as to track money back. So majorly why the CBN is doing that is to be able to reduce the money in circulation. We do that through the CRR, and we also do that through the HOMO bills and the treasury bills.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Oladiton. Okay, still joining us, I have a second guest joining us this morning to discuss further on this. His name is Mr. Kabiru Aruna. He's the MD CEO of Global View Capital Limited. So, Mr. Kabiru, can you hear me? Okay, he's joining us via Zoom. So, just a bit of, can you hear me now, Mr. Kabiru? Okay, we'll come.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's good to know.
I can hear you loud
so
and
Mr.
clear.
Kabira is the MD CEO of Global View Capital Limited. So we're discussing the MPC committee meeting and the results, which is a hike in the interest rate to 24.75%. So Mr. Kabira, how do you think this will affect the Nigerian, or how will it impact on the Nigerian economy?
Yeah, I would like to start by where the issue started from. We saw when the president removed subsidy from the oil, and we know that automatically increased the cost of power. We spread across every nook and every businesses, like cost of transportation was increased, cost of doing business, diesel and generator was increased, which translates to increase in goods and services. And now that is why we see that inflation has been growing from month to month. And it is in the imperative of the CBN to make sure that this is stemmed, because if not, there is no foreign direct investor that will come, because you cannot be investing and getting 12% and inflation is 30%. It means that ab initio you are investing at a loss. So what I believe that the central bank is actually trying to do is, one, is to stem inflation, to bring down inflation to maybe like 21% or 20%, and to attract foreign investment. And you know, what now happened is that they want as much as possible to drag down the volume of money in circulation. And what this means is that it is believed that in simple inflation, that is when too much money pursue few goods. So the central bank is trying to make sure that they reduce the circulation of money in the money in circulation to a minimum, where the economy will have to reset itself. The way we have now, we have an equilibrium. That is why we are getting at, like you see what they are doing about the dollar. We understand the dollar went as far as 1,900. What we have here today, the dollar is about 1,400. And remember that policies are not like board switches that you just press on and it will just come on. Once like as at the time they set inflation for 22.75, the last meeting they did before that of yesterday, they will watch what is happening. That is why they discovered that yes, they needed another increase. That is why they put it at 24.75% yesterday. So as this goes by, there will be multiplier effect. That at the end of the day, by the time inflation is stemmed down to 21% or 20%, there is every possibility of a reversal of all these rates.
So, Mr. Kabira, this multiplier effect, now how is it going to impact on the economy? We know the highest inflation right now in the economy is the food inflation, and everyone is complaining about it, from our staple food items to imported foods. The prices of food items are going up. In fact, this to focus on imported foods, to be precise, the current reduction, like the fact that CBN released a directive to the Bureau de Change to actually put a cap on how much they sell dollar to Nigeria, is not even having any impact on imported food items like cereals, like beverages like coffee, even fruits like strawberries or apples. It's not having any effect on them. These imported food items are still very high. So how can this multiplier effect, do you think is going to have any, will there be any positive impact on food inflation? Would you see a likely possibility that food inflation will reduce with the CBN's new directive?
There is one thing that is very, that the human being doesn't want to do, is change, especially when it's not favoring them. And if you understand that as at the time the dollar was rising from 900 to 1,000, 1,200, the sellers were quick to adjust their prices. But now that the dollar is stemming down from 1,900 to below 1,400, there are two things involved. One, the sellers are asking themselves, can this still be sustained? What about if I reduce my price today, then by tomorrow I now understand again the dollar has gone back to 1,600, dollar has gone back to 1,700. If I now begin to readjust my price upward again, would the buyer think whether something is wrong with me? That is on the other. And again, that one, if as the dollar is coming down, the sellers will now say they want to sell their old stock at the old rate before they begin to adjust. What they will simply tell you that they bought what they have in stock, they bought at $1,900. So by the time they are done with that, then by the time they begin to import at a cost of $1,400, then they can adjust the prices downward. So it is in us, it's not in the policy. Like I said, that the policy will have a multiplier. It's not something that you just press here and something will happen. So it's not depend on even we as Nigerians. How do we react? How do we allow this multiplier effect to take effect? So if they are ready to adjust as per the downtrending of the dollar, then by now we should have been seeing all those things you are talking about at a much cheaper rate. I think it's still in us. But I still believe that as much as this money is being siphoned through the CRR, the liquidity ratio, and the interest rate from the banks, then we see the economy will reset itself. We see a new equilibrium.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Kabira. So, okay, back to my guest in the studio, Mr. Oladiton. Yes, we heard what Mr. Kabira said now. Okay, so what are the potential consequences for such a high interest rate? I mean, he mentioned, I said inflation is increasing. It has increased to 31.70%, and food inflation is the highest right now. And it's not like, yes, I understand the CBN governor and his team are working hard, but we're not seeing any impact because in a few days' time, rather, we're going to be entering a new month, and inflation is not slowing down anytime soon. So what are the potential consequences for what this directive by the Central Bank of Nigeria?
Okay, so basically the monetary policy rate is more or less like a benchmark for banks to set their lending rates to their customers. Naturally, the cost of business is going to go up. The cost of funding business, the cost of debt is going to go up. Yes. If the cost of debt is increasing, the cost of equity is also likely to increase. Now, it is not favorable for those that are majorly debt funded to be able to sustain their business with this consistent rise in interest rates, because what 24.75% means is that within 3 to 4 years, I've paid you back the total capital that you've even lent to me. No business is able to sustain like that over the long run, because what is even your gross margin? What is even your net margin at the end of the day, or your operating margin before you even pay the interest? In fact, you are going up with nothing, and the shareholders need to go on with something because they are exposed to most risk. So if you observe, if you look at the stock exchange over the last couple of days, it has been trying to reset itself. That's one of the issues with the increase in monetary policy rates. All these abnormalities we've been seeing in the stock exchange will try as much as possible to correct itself within the short term. What are we also likely to see as a result of this interest rate is that foreign portfolio investors are going to come in. Immediately, the 293rd Monetary Policy Committee held. The next thing was for the CBN governor to go and add an investors meeting. We know that it's hot money. What we mean by hot money is that it's coming in because of the high interest rate. By the time the interest rate goes down, it leaves the system, but at least it has tried as much as possible to correct a bit fix. It is not even favorable for the CBN to continue to increase rates. So because CBN need to find a way to be able to pay back that money, it is compared to when the government was taking money from the Ways and Means window without no interest. Now the government need to spend up to 24% to be able to pay back. We should not forget that our debt to GDP ratio is like about 66.7%, or our our debt to total expense is about 66.7%. And that is to say that if we cannot continue to increase our debt over the long run, it's not sustainable for us. So the only reason why CBN has taken it to this level is to see, let's even see the impact on inflation. But also, something has not been done. You cannot just keep playing on one side and we neglect the other side. The cost of diesel have increased. Cost of logistics and transportation have increased. Yes. Insecurity has also increased. People do not have the confidence of going back to their farms to go and plant or to go and harvest their crops and all that. The cost of energy has also increased for manufacturing companies. Transportation and logistics, we've seen kidnapping here and there. So indirectly, we cannot even say we are likely to see a relief within the short term. But CBN is not going to wait till when they achieve like about 21.4%, which is in the line with the budget, 2024 budget, for the inflation rate that is targeted for the year. But they are likely to still hold we don't have a monetary policy committee meeting in April. We are like, the next one is likely to be in 2 months' time. So as to see, we've been seeing positive feedback from the stabilization of the foreign exchange over the short period. So we are likely to see a hold, but CBN will still want to reduce it. The only thing that can make CBN to continue to increase it is if inflation continues to go up. And what can make inflation go up is if the insecurity increases, cost of diesel increases, energy cost increases, logistics and distribution is not addressed. So government really need to do something about that.
Okay, can you just hold that thought on what government needs to do about that? Because we do not want this inflation to increase. I mean, it's really impacting on every single person in the economy. You haven't seen anybody that has not complained about the inflation right now. So after the break, I will still discuss further with my guests, both in the studio and my guest via Zoom. So stay tuned.
I'm okay.
My name is Raymond Bola Brown.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to SOUQ News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is SOUQ News.
Shout out to SOUQ News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
SOUQ News. Here's the SOUQ News, who had the courage to transcend a locked-off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, SOUQ News. Thank you very much.
The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers, knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowopopo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Welcome back. So I'm still here in the studio discussing with the Monetary Policy Committee decision how they have hiked the benchmark interest rate to 24.75%. My guest in the studio, Mr. Oladiton, has also been explaining the Central Bank of Nigeria's decision for hiking the interest rate. And also my guest via Zoom, Mr. Kabira, has also been explaining further. But let's take a look at a short clip from the CBN governor, Mr. Cardoso, where he was explaining these details during a press conference.
The Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, of the Central Bank of Nigeria held its 294th meeting to minus 300 basis points. 3. Retain the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks at 45%. 4. Adjust the cash reserve ratio of merchant banks from 10% to 14%. And 5, retain the liquidity ratio at 30%. Considerations. The considerations of the committee at this meeting focused on the current inflationary pressures and the need to anchor inflation expectations as well as ensure sustained exchange rate stability.
Welcome back. So that was the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, as he explained the reasons for hiking up the interest rates, and also, but he was going further, but that was a short clip we could just take from that. Okay, so you also heard him, Mr. Oladito, when he was explaining how he's increasing and how he's also widening the asymmetric corridor also. Okay, so now, going further, so what is the performance so far of the capital importation drive? Very few people are asking these questions actually, because we know, yes, as he rightfully said, he has hiked up the interest rates. As he also said, he also, for the deposit rates for deposit banks was retained as 45%, and then merchant banks, we've also explained that. But what is the performance so far for capital importation drive?
Okay, good. So we've been seeing positive returns on the capital importation. For example, now the Nigerian foreign exchange reserve is above $35 billion, and that is one of the highest we've seen over the last couple of years. So money is coming in. But what can you do to ensure that this money will stay in the system? Where is the money really going to? We've also seen that the NNPC proceeds that were previously are now being domiciled with the CBN. So CBN is trying as much as possible to ensure that there is a true demand of dollar. There is because we cannot really say what exactly is the true demand of the foreign exchange in the Nigerian market now. CBN is trying to maintain what exactly is the true demand for dollar, so as we're able to maintain it at the exchange rate at a very stable point. So all this, if we're able to get the exchange rate stable, we might not be able to achieve what we had in the budget at 750, but we should be able to have a reasonable stability. We'll be able to have improvement within the system.
Okay, thank you for that. Just hold that thought for me, Mr. Oladito. Okay, Mr. Kabira, are you online with us now? Join us shortly, actually. Now, this aggressive hike rate by the Central Bank of Nigeria, do you think it will be suitable enough to curb this inflation that is moving so fast? Do you really think so? In your own opinion, please, Mr. Oladito.
So, basically, it's not even sustainable for the CBN to continue to increase the rate, because it is more or less like a punitive measure. You only have to do this as a punitive measure, as the last solution. CBN, nobody will want to give someone money and give you like about the same capital within 3 to 4 years. If I'm giving you 22% every year, I just need to, within the space of 4 years, I've paid you back the whole capital you lent me. It's not sustainable for anybody, not even for the CBN or for the federal government. So the only thing that CBN can do is what is within their power. CBN is not going to go to the farms. Yes. CBN is not going to address issues on the road. They can only address the demand for money. Then we need the fiscal policy to intervene, and this has been an issue we've been having with within the Nigerian economic system. We need the appropriate balance of fiscal and monetary policies to play together. Just the monetary the monetary market cannot kill the giant or cannot stifle the giant. They also called it out in the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting to expand the tax net, to reduce food insecurity. But let's call a spade a spade. Nigeria, the fiscal policy really needs to address its cost of debt funding. That's one major issue. Address insecurity issues within the country. So
okay, just hold on a second, please. Can you just hold that thought? You were mentioning some very vital points, please. Okay, Mr. Kabira, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, that's good to note. Okay, so we watched a short clip where Mr. Olayemi Cardoso was mentioning how they have increased the monetary policy rate and also widened or rather, if I may say, tighten the asymmetric corridor. He mentioned the figures plus 100 minus 300 actually. So I was discussing with my guest in the studio, and I also want to ask you, there's a new term right now that has been coined because of Nigeria's current inflation situation, if I'm allowed to say that. So we have this it's somewhat stagnating, and the inflation keeps going up. So how do we, what suggestions would you recommend for this stagnation, if I'm allowed to call it that?
Stagflation. Yeah, yes, what I do know, like your guest has said, is that the problem of the economy is solved with the two prongs, the fiscal and the monetary policy. But the only thing is that the central bank cannot just fold its hand when the fiscal policy is actually not there. They will try as much as possible what they can do, and that is exactly what they are trying to do. But to make everything equal, to actually fully reset the economy and establish another equilibrium. You heard when it was talking about that is the food inflation that is bringing the highest. There should be food. I have said it before that the only problem to this is surplus when there is a glut. As far as there is no food in the markets, if you like, withdraw all the money in circulation. The inflation might actually not come to your desired level. It might not come to one-digit inflation that we so much aspire to meet. So I have talked about intervention, central bank intervention. I've talked about going back to the farm. But the question is that the people cannot go back to the farm. I saw a picture yesterday. Somebody was lamenting. A whole hectare of banana was pulled down by bandits. They just went to the farm and destroyed everything that it has. If that continues, they are discouraging farmers. The only thing that needs to be done is to find a way of protecting the farmer so that they can go to the farm and harvest. And I've also made an example of what normally happens during the harvest season. You can see that during the harvest season, the prices of food will crash. Why? Because there is a glut. But now you don't even feel when it is harvest season. Why? Because what is being produced is not enough for consumption. One, if the people can even organize themselves and go to the farm to produce, then there is a problem of transportation. The roads are not safe. Then when they are carrying their goods to the market, they get kidnapped. So they are afraid of even embarking on such journeys. Thereby, making sure that those food are not gotten to the places where they are found. I also saw another video yesterday where tomatoes were rotten. They were kept under the tree because there is no transportation, no road, no infrastructure to carry them from the point of produce to the point of need. If they can do that, security is one of the major issues. By the time we can solve the insecurity portion and this CBN doing their bit, we'll get a new equilibrium and Nigeria will be better again.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Kebira. Okay, I still want you to go further on this, Mr. Kebira. Yes, you mentioned that governments should not only look into the monetary policy, but also the fiscal policy, actually. These are the ways. But apart from, yes, you talked about insecurity. Now, if you were part of government, what other factors would you recommend to solve this inflation, this this inflation that keeps growing every month? What other policies or what other recommendations would you suggest?
The biggest spender in the economy is the government. And we have discovered for a very long time that whatever that is coming from oil is being used to service debt. It's to step down on the debt level. The debt level of the government is high. If they can stay, both the internal and the external debt level is high. If you want a country to develop, it's the government that actually will develop it. Just take, for instance, assuming government gives a contract to dualize Lagos-Benin Express Road, and you know how long that it is and how long it's going to take. And you know the manpower, the labor that will be involved, and you know the market that will create along that route, the number of indirect employment that will be created along that route, and the number of direct labor that will be created along that route. And look at every other business, other infrastructure, government putting money into other infrastructure. But that is what makes economic to develop. It's not just when you begin to tighten monetary policy, when you begin to remove money from the bank and the rest. There's supposed to be a development on the physical side of it. That is what creates that equilibrium. that aggregates equilibrium for the economy. And that is what also creates economic development. So the government needs to do more, not just to go through the CBN. One, they should try as much as possible to stem down their borrowing. But I also understand too that the last treasury bill and the last bond that were offered for sale was also part of this contractionary monetary policy. But by the time the rates are low and they begin to go into the economy and spend, then the economy will develop better than we can see it today.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Market Insights, Mr. Aruna Kabira, for sharing your thoughts on what you, considering what the Central Bank of Nigeria governor just did, increasing the hiking of the rates for interest rate to 24.75%. Thank you for joining us this morning, for sharing your thoughts with us and your opinions and your recommendations on how we can solve inflation in the economy. We look forward to having you again on Market Insights. Thank you, Mr. Kabira.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay, back to you, Mr. Oladito. So, okay, yes, we heard what Mr. Kabira said. Yes, government needs to step down borrowing. And also, you were talking about debt funding before we moved on to the guest news. So what other points or what other suggestions do you have apart from debt funding and government stepping down borrowing?
Despite the fact that the government said they were going to implement the RSIS report, when I still checked the dailies yesterday, I saw that new directors, generals were still being appointed. That means there's a conflict somewhere. Government keep bringing more people, and those new directors, you need to provide them office facilities. You need to. I don't really understand. And the more you continue to increase your budget deficit, the more we have more pressure within the society. So what I think government can do, right, aside from the case of reducing their debt and reducing their spending, we need to look at the storage and the distribution networks. Over 50% of the goods that leave the farmland get spoiled along the road. What is the rail system? Can the rail system be used to transport? Even after they get to the final market, we will see things like touts or revenue. They said they are working for the local government, and a nickname they use for them is Agbe. I don't know what they are doing there. You take them to vocational centers, let them go and do more things productive. Take them to manufacturing organizations, let them be involved. Not that they are just staying on the street collecting money that they are not working for. So, for example, I brought my goods to the market I want to sell. A tax man is charging me, or an Agberu is charging me for that. I need to make profit at the end of the day, so that is also going to increase the cost of goods. So if you go to those markets, those normal food markets, people are likely to have a higher cost as a result of that. Also, the pass-through effect of the dollar. So for those that say they don't want to reduce the prices of their goods, if it is a perfect competitive market, if you are not the only one selling that good, if I come to your shop today and tell me this good is still the same good, is worth 5,000 naira. I go to another person's shop, it's 4,000 naira. I'll go to the place that is cheaper for me. What you are going to have a risk of obsolete stock. At the end of the day, if you don't even bring it down, you'll be forced to bring it down, or else you are going to lose. So it's just a market system. It's just a market system that will effectively fix itself. But another thing we should also consider, cost of power is not likely to go down, because even government have to step in to reduce the electricity tariff. So the major thing that we need to do is the monetary policy is trying. And if they continue with this trend, if there's no intimidation or there is no threat, we might get to a point in time where is not sustainable again. We cannot continue to increase rates. We cannot continue to tighten everywhere if the fiscal does not wake up. So the earlier the fiscal policies wake up, and the earlier the government intervention, the government decide to intervene in food security, intervene in insecurity, intervene in transportation and logistics and distribution, creating look at what the Lagos State government did. They opened some market hubs where you can get food cheaper. Every Sunday you can go there and get food at a cheaper rate, and they are very durable.
25% discount.
Discount. That is what they can do. A partnership with it. So you know that.
So you're saying it should be spread across all states?
Yeah, it should be spread across all states. You release more grains to the farmers, increase the education of the farmers, ensure that people have the free will of going back to their farms. The issue of insecurity is removed, is addressed. So with all that, we are going to see that the inflation rate is likely to come down. But if we don't address the case of the inflation rate, the insecurity and all that, inflation is continuing to go up. Just to remind you, as of 2 days ago, cocoa was trading at above $10,000 per ton. That majorly food and non-alcoholic beverages for our tea is also likely to go up. So what can you do? You need to see how we could how we could intervene and not wait for the CBN. CBN is just like a punitive tool if the fiscal does not really wake up.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Oladito. Okay, just before we go, yes, I understand what you're saying, the dollar effect. It's like I was talking to Mr. Kabira, I said it's not having any impact on imported goods. And then you also mentioned transportation. Like last week I was at the local markets at Obalinde, and most of the market traders were complaining that, oh, what they buy, they have to pay money to somebody calling himself tax for local government. So I mean, like you rightfully said, if these things actually curbed effectively, yes, I think it also helps to reduce prices, not just having all these monetary policy committee meetings. And then the cost of power, yes, I'm sure when you mentioned the Orosanye report that government said they're going to reduce the cost of governance, they actually said they're going to merge some ministries, or rather some parastatals together. But have we really seen this being effective? Because this is part of the things that, like you said, if you employ a new director, you have to employ assistants, personal assistants, advisors to this person. So it's not reducing, it's also increasing. So it's not just the CBN having monetary policy committee meetings, it's also, I think there's more to be done. Apart from the fiscal policy and the monetary policy, the cost of governance, actually. If you could just touch on that briefly, there's also more to be done. Yes.
So Nigeria is one of the most, Nigerian government is one of the most expensive governments in the world.
Yes.
And most people are going to public office because of the emolument. Yeah, we see that several ministers are funding some money or allocating some money to what we saw the case of the budget padding recently. Don't make the place too attractive for people to come in. Ensure that in some advanced states, you are not even paid a salary. You only paid sitting allowance, which is not even up to a token, which you hear. So we know that we are giving back to the state. If government can reduce the cost of governance, I think about 40% of Nigerian problem is solved. The oil side did not just start yesterday. It has started sometime in 2010, and we are not seeing. We were even surprised that the president decided to take ownership that he was going to implement the oil side report. But what we are seeing is totally at disparity. So government really needs to look at that. We cannot continue to push the CBN to come and punish the masses, meanwhile you are not doing what should be done. If the government sits up, I think Nigeria is a country to go, and they should invest majorly in infrastructural development and investing so much in agriculture. Agriculture needs a total reform within the country.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Oladito Oluwatosin. It was really great having you here on Market Insights as we discuss this Monetary Policy Committee meeting and the recent hike in interest rate to 24.75%. So that was our package on Market Insights, and we hope you join us again on Market Insights, Mr. Oladito.
Thank you very much, Lovina.
Okay, so that's our time this morning on Market Insights as we discussed how this will impact on the economy, how it will also affect food inflation, which is at its all-time high right now. And we hope that with these policies, and we hope government is also listening, will actually reduce the